Hi, I'm Mike Rowe, and I just narrated the documentary you're about to watch. Spoiler alert, it's pretty great. Unlike the people featured in this film, I never had the pleasure of knowing Bruce White, but now I feel like I do, and a half hour from now, you will too. I agreed to narrate the film because I think our country needs to hear more stories about more Americans like Bruce. Hardworking, relentless perfectionists who were never satisfied with the status quo, but always humble. Men and women who are constantly driven to make the world a better place while enjoying every moment of the life they've been given. This is the story of a man who inspired everyone he knew to be the very best version of themselves. The story of a natural leader whose name became synonymous with genuine hospitality. The story of a man who made the American dream a reality for himself, his family, his friends, his employees, and too many others to count. This is the story of a man named Bruce.
Bruce was regarded as a leader. You know, if you think today, people look at Mr. Marriott and he's built a great company. He's certainly up there in terms of how people would say, God, that's a great legacy. But Bruce, I think, enjoys a very similar role.
A leader can't be consumed by the narcotic of the urgent. You need to begin with the end in mind.
Well, and I grew up in a very blue-collar Crown Point. The neighborhood I grew up in was kind of a rough and tumble region steelworker area. We had more than our fair share of fun. I went to work when I was 11 years old, and I always worked construction, lumberyard, hod carrier. My first night ever working in a hotel was the opening night, May 2nd, 1969. And I fell in love with the hospitality industry that night.
In the world of hospitality, Bruce White's name stands legend. An industry icon, Bruce was a proud Indiana son and the eldest of 3 boys and 1 daughter, born to Dean and Barbara White. His father, a strong, driven businessman himself, built White Advertising, an outdoor advertising company. But Bruce would build his own path. After high school, Bruce attended Purdue University, pursuing a degree in management.
I enjoyed school, but I was never one to let schooling interfere with my education. I hated sitting in class. That's just not my story. I went to class enough, I graduated with a B average, but I only went to class before a test so I could cram. I literally hated going to class.
But one thing Bruce did love was the hospitality industry. And soon after graduating from Purdue University, he got a job working for Hyatt.
My dad bought me a sport coat before I went to work because he said, every young executive needs a nice coat that when they have a big meeting or whatever, they feel good about themselves and go in with confidence.
But his manager had a different outfit planned for his first day, handing him an orange jumpsuit and telling Bruce his first week on the job would be working with the maintenance team.
And he goes, what are you waiting for? And so I'm a region guy. So I'm like, okay, you think you're tough? I'll show you. I'll take your bet and I'll one-up you. I just took my clothes off right there with people walking right past.
In that very moment, Bruce won his boss over, along with the other associates, never complaining while scrubbing public toilets. Soon, others started recognizing his natural affinity, his passion for hospitality.
And then I knew my dad had this failing hotel, and I'm like, I'm gonna get my master's. And I'd been accepted to IU School of Business. And my dad said, well, that's great, but I have this Holiday Inn. He said, before you go to graduate school, why don't you spend some time here? And I could actually add a lot of value, not because I was great, just because they had no process.
He had the drive, no question. You know, my father was driven for sure, and Bruce certainly got that from my dad, where he was driven and woke up every day, you know, with full of energy and wanting to get things accomplished.
In 1985, Bruce set out to accomplish his vision, white lodging. And soon, he had someone by his side. In 1987, he married Beth Maloney.
One, Beth is genuine. She's just a genuine, sweet person, okay? But she's a sweet person with a backbone. You know, with Beth, all of a sudden, it was them. And his focus was on him and her and them and family. Beth was always a part of the equation.
Together, they set out to build a business and a values-driven life, centered around family, friends, and community involvement, stepping out of the shadow of his father and building his vision his own way.
Driving from hotel to hotel. I had no corporate support. I had a secretary and accountant. That's it. That's all of White Lodge. Thank God they had the old big cell phones at that time. My life was driving from market to market, Austin to Houston to San Antonio, either looking for sites or checking on our hotels or stopping at any McDonald's on the road to get a Diet Coke to stay awake. I was on the phone, whether it was to the family, and I would put my yellow pad, I would connect it up there too, and the whole time I was driving, I was also conducting business. It was the only time I had it because I was always on the road.
The key back in those days, I got to be the first guy in.
We go to the first meeting, Bruce shows up, he's actually got a yellow legal pad and he's taking notes. I knew him 4 years at Purdue and I never saw him write one thing down. I didn't even know he owned a piece of paper. I couldn't believe the transition, you know, where he became so focused and detail oriented. I mean, he put in the time, he put in the energy, and he built that company.
We knew every week what our objectives were and what they were for the next 90 days.
Yeah.
And people would say, you can't. They would say, what you're saying is impossible. It wasn't impossible at all. It's just that people, they never took the time to reverse engineer what was going on. Let's start from zero and build it the way that it should have been built in the first place.
My dad was always so clear about what was the true north. He always had the saying, begin with the end in mind. And he would share that end in mind with everyone. So everyone knew almost exactly where they were supposed to get to.
Begin with the end in mind. That was the key to Bruce's drive and vision.
Bruce was keen on being a first. He wanted to be a first. And, you know, when he thinks up a great idea, he takes it to the finish line.
I was obsessed with Marriott, and I would go to the Chicago Marriott and big Marriott hotels, and I would lie to the general manager and tell him I was a graduate student at Purdue working on a thesis, interviewing him, and of course that was a complete fabrication.
Bruce was constantly gathering information, outlining goals, even scouring Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. In other words, he was dedicated and considered himself a lifelong learner.
My dad called down to the office and he said, you know, we got this guy from Marriott. So I actually ran into him in the elevator. I said, I'm Bruce White. You don't know me. And he goes, you know, I do know who you are. We made the decision to franchise Fairfield. And he said, I'd like you to come to DC to talk to us about considering being a Fairfield Inn franchisee. Well, it took all of a millisecond. I mean, my attitude about my future in the hotel industry changed from worst to first. I knew I won the lottery. I was the first one to the door.
In 1990, White Lodging opened the first Fairfield franchise in Maryville, Indiana. Understanding the magnitude of the opportunity that had been presented, he often said he didn't just put the pedal to the metal, he slammed it through the floorboard. Bruce was re-energized, driven by a new vision of White Lodging.
His vision was ever changing. I mean, it was always rooted in being the best. But, you know, when I first met him, he had 2 hotels, and he just wanted, you know, he wanted to grow the company. But the goalpost kept moving, you know, throughout. From the moment I met him, he was working on yellow legal notepads, and there were times when I tried to get him a nicer notebook, and you know, but the yellow notepads were what he wanted.
He had these yellow legal pads that were just all over all the time, and he would, you know, scribble notes in them constantly.
His business plan, his life plan, every year he made all of his goals for the year. He would write 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year.
They're hard to read because of his handwriting, but there's always just absolute gold in them.
And we have stacks of them.
Like going on trips as a kid, he would have a briefcase that was like 10 to 12 yellow notebooks in the briefcase and not much else. I mean, they were his life. Yeah, and now we're like finding all of these old yellow notebooks and trying to read through, and you can just see his stream of conscious thinking on these yellow notebooks, and it makes no sense to anybody else, and we're spending hours trying to decipher what was he writing down, and then you figure out what he was saying, and it all makes so much sense.
Bruce was incredibly process-driven, creating blueprints and flowcharts with his vision and goals for White Lodging, sequencing milestone events and planning, always planning his next moves, always focusing on the constant pursuit of excellence.
If you're not getting better, you're getting worse. And, you know, if my kind of attitude is if you get frustrated by the idea of continuing to focus and working to get better, then, you know, go find a different organization that wants to be mediocre. Because, you know, we know to be that company that lasts forever, we have to be a leader.
He always would say things like, begin with the end in mind. That was always one of his big things. In other words, what are we trying to achieve here?
I mean, beginning with the end in mind, he would always, his vision, and I think sometimes he made that seem a lot easier than others may experience. He could envision 10 years down the road what success really looked like, and he wouldn't accept less than that.
Bruce's relationship with Marriott flourished, and for many years, Bruce White was Marriott's largest independent franchisee. Bill Marriott would later say that the stunning success that Bruce had with the Fairfield property established White Lodging as one of Marriott's most trusted partners. But Bruce was never satisfied. He and his team were regularly investing, buying hotels and converting them to whatever brand was appropriate for the market. Soon, he developed partnerships with Hilton, Hyatt, IHG, along with Marriott. And White Lodging's growth turned exponential, expanding from 25 properties in 1995 to 50 properties in 1999, and then to more than 100 properties by 2005.
Because you have to go faster than people think. Everybody's going to think it's chaos because there is a lot of chaos involved. But when the opportunity is there and you have everybody else competing with you for the same opportunity, you just have to move faster than other people. You're going to incur a lot of risk, and you have to manage that risk, and it's going to make a lot of people uncomfortable.
Bruce knew that to transform an industry, It would require White Lodging to be disruptive. So, ever the innovator, in 2006, Bruce introduced a completely new concept when he opened the first dual-branded property in the United States, a Courtyard and Residence Inn in downtown Austin. And soon after, Bruce once again slammed the pedal through the floorboard with a visionary move that accelerated White Lodging's growth.
We exited all the smaller suburban markets. The RLJ, we sold 99 hotels. RLJ subject to 40-year management agreements. It was a transformational event in the life and history of White Lodging, because again, it gave us all these equity to do urban and more hotels.
The proceeds from the sale were reinvested in new hotel developments so rapidly that at one time, the company was developing and opening more than 10 hotels every year. In 2011, Bruce opened the largest JW Marriott in the world in Indianapolis. Then, in 2013, he introduced the country's first tri-brand located in Chicago and the JW Marriott in Austin, surpassing the size of the JW Indy. By 2017, White Lodging's managed revenues exceeded $1.5 billion. But Bruce was still not satisfied.
I can remember when he was unhappy with the way our hotel restaurants were doing. And, he came up and said, we're not building any more hotel restaurants. No one wants to eat in a hotel restaurant. The only time they eat in a hotel restaurant is because they don't have another option. So what we're going to do is we're going to start building restaurants that happen to be attached to a hotel. And he changed the whole mindset. It had to be a place that locals wanted to come eat.
At that time, most hotel restaurants were uninspired places, but Bruce had a new vision, uniquely branded lifestyle restaurant and bar concepts that competed with local restaurants. Even with his commitment to food and beverage innovation, Bruce also understood the importance of hiring the right people and the importance of training them.
I think he had the ability to attract people, hire people, very good people, based on his personality. He was the type of person people wanted to work with and for, and were willing to follow him to hell and back.
We knew to be the most successful service provider, we'd have to be the preferred service employer. And we all embraced that, we all understood it, and we just worked hard, again, through measurement, recognition, training, celebration, to create a positive yet accountable workforce in the field, and we were very engaged. We were out in the field all the time. We were not stuck in the home office.
I heard so many people, both when he was alive and especially right after he passed, but I already knew this, so many people would tell me, your dad believed in me when no one else did. And I think that was because he would seek out people that he saw potential in that might not be realized, or people that just needed a confidence boost. And then on the flip side, I think he also recognized the danger of vanity and the danger of cockiness or arrogance. And he had a great way too, especially in his position, of kind of knocking people down when it was to their best interest to be knocked down.
I always wanted to give people more to do than they thought they were capable of doing. I always thought my role was to help them. I don't evaluate people all the same, but I evaluate people on how close they are to their potential.
Bruce was a master puppeteer. It instilled that passion, he could transfer that passion from him to you in such an incredible way. Beth told me, many people have told us, I said, he got more out of me than I thought I had.
By 2018, White Lodging began a strategic shift to a curated portfolio, centering on urban, experiential hotels that focused on memorable and elevated guest experiences. But then, the world changed.
The pandemic, nobody knew where the finish line was. People didn't know if it was going to get better, it was going to get worse. So you basically had to plan for the absolute worst. Everybody says plan for the worst, hope for the best. Well, in this case, it was real time. Our sales went from basically averaging about $3.5 million a day to less than $150,000 a day.
The pandemic was devastating to the industry, and Bruce knew how difficult it was for the White Lodging associates. To him, they were part of the family. So, through his foundation, Bruce distributed more than $5 million to the employees he cared for so deeply.
I take great pride that, again, we provide employment opportunities for many people looking for the American dream. We can provide them a sense of dignity and predictability and pride.
The American dream is something that my dad really took to heart. And I think that's really what he took to his core, is he was doing this because it could do so much for others. And I really think that's going to be the core of his legacy.
When we get our people to say, I work for White Lodging, and they take more pride in that, and they identify more than that than they do the hotel they work at, then we'll know we would accomplish something.
By 2022, White Lodging's portfolio consisted of 60 premium hotels, a private collection of world-renowned luxury ranches, 50 award-winning restaurants, and 10 market-leading rooftop bars.
You're going to sense the excitement about what we're doing the second you walk in the doors, and you're going to feel it all the time. We love the ability to know we're providing comfort and security to people that are all stressed out on the road traveling. To me, it's just an honor to be of service to these people.
He was thrust into a career that was such a blessing for him because he was, I don't know anyone that was made for the hospitality world more than Bruce. I mean, he lived, all of us that experienced it on the personal side is hospitality. It was genuine, it was real, there was no script, it was genuine hospitality.
He was so knowledgeable, he was so well respected as a professional, but then you met him and he was so much fun. He always took such pride of being from Northwest Indiana and kind of that shoot the shit, I'm gonna kind of give you a little jab here, but it's all out of love and it's all, coming from this amazing place. So he just had that gift that's hard to replicate.
Bruce was focused, he was loyal, friends were everything to him. He always liked to have fun.
One of my favorite memories with my dad was, as we talked about before, he was so just obsessed with basketball. And I do really feel like the teamwork aspect of basketball he felt was one of the best teachers for how to go about life. The amount of passion he showed and the amount he could use basketball as a kind of lens to teach lessons as a father that I didn't really realize at the time, but whether I was being a good teammate, wasn't being a good teammate, if I needed to be more aggressive, more confident, less confident, but I think he used those, now that I look back, as moments where he showed his passion for being a part of a team and for the sport of basketball, but two, just teaching me his values.
It's all about a basketball game.
He wasn't just a hard driver in his career, but he was also a hard driver in pretty much anything that he did. So basketball, you didn't want him defending you in basketball, let's put it that way.
So Arnie and I are playing Bruce and Dino, and I think this is the only time in Dino's life that he's probably in risk of getting fired, right? Bruce is pretty intense on this. At the end, Bruce ends up making a left-handed hook shot, which is sort of was his shot, and he won the game. And you would have thought that the NBA championships or NCAA championships, Bruce was Bruce. There was no air about it. We just had fun.
Behind the fiercely driven business giant, there was a fiercely loyal, fun-loving family man with a passion for basketball and music. More than anything, Bruce loved sharing those passions with others, constantly bringing people together and creating memories.
Yeah, he just loved music so much.
So he was driving us home in his green minivan, and Peter Frampton's epic "Do You Feel Like We Do" 11-minute version live came on, and we had already kind of started going down the driveway, and we backed out of the driveway and then just spent the entire 11 minutes rocking out in the minivan to good old Peter Frampton.
When I first started, it was my first year. So he went out to the Hell at the Moon with us. And of course, the piano bar was, doing their songs. And one of Bruce's favorite songs, American Pie, came on. And Bruce loved that so much, he actually went up to the piano, sat on the piano, and sang American Pie to the rest of the GMs. That, to me, just illustrates that he loves to have fun.
While working at the Star Plaza Theater, a live music venue his father owned in Maryville, Indiana, he met musicians like the Oak Ridge Boys, who became lifelong friends. With his encyclopedic knowledge of music, if hospitality didn't work out, maybe he could have had a career in the music business after publishing and getting royalty checks for 59 Fever, Winnin' Ugly, a song he co-wrote in 1984. Just as with business, Bruce had a vision for all his philanthropic efforts. He never backed down from setting ambitious goals for the organizations he supported, and then backing those goals with contributions both financial and personal.
And our philosophy is real simple. If something's worth investing in, it's worth investing in big today, as opposed to just letting resources sit around and not impact things.
When his alma mater, Purdue University, asked him to serve on the board of trustees, Bruce warned them he was going to challenge the status quo.
He's a force. He is a real force. He wants to move mountains, and he wants them to be big mountains, and he wants to put them in a better place. And so usually the tasks he's passionate about are significant. And so when he came to Purdue and he came to the board, I think that's what his intention was. I want to make a big difference here.
Bruce knew he could make an enormous impact on Purdue's hospitality management program with a vision to make it the best in the nation, creating the White Lodging J.W. Marriott Jr. School of Hospitality and Tourism Management, the Bruce White Undergraduate Institute, and transforming the Union Club Hotel on campus into a hands-on classroom.
Our family's commitment to Purdue is deep, and we want to see the hospitality and the business school be the very best in the nation. Bruce would never settle for second best.
One of the nonprofits nearest and dearest to his heart was Big Shoulders, a charitable group supporting schools in Chicago and Northwest Indiana.
How I explain it to people is we use the infrastructure of the Catholic schools to serve and provide high-quality education to underserved communities. We're hands-on in the schools. We mentor the kids. We're in there regularly, and there are after-school programs, weekend STEM programs. We created Staddle Camp. And what's most remarkable to me is the success rate of sending kids to college. It's unbelievable to me as a former trustee at Purdue how successful the Big Shoulder kids are at graduating from college.
Bruce wanted to make an impact and transform communities. And he did. The White Family Foundations have invested or pledged more than $300 million in legacy investments, including the expansion of inner-city youth education and several state-of-the-art community centers at YMCA facilities in Northwest Indiana, named for Bruce's parents.
But you couldn't have a Purdue Hall of Fame, you couldn't have an Indiana Business Hall of Fame without Bruce White in it. Yeah. He's literally one of the most important figures in the economic life of this state over the last many decades.
And she said, have you ever dreamed of something? What would, now that you have some money? And I said, well, I've always dreamt of owning property out in Wyoming. And I guess my hospitality gene took over. So we started rehabbing the cabins, which we largely did to retain the historic nature of the ranch. But then when we restored the cabins, we started having people stay in on. One thing led to the other, and we said, well, why don't we open up to the public and see what happens?
In 2008, following a lifelong passion for the American West and the outdoors, Bruce acquired Brush Creek Ranch in Saratoga, Wyoming. Brush Creek is the culmination of Bruce's extensive hospitality experience, his continuous dedication to philanthropy, and his unabashed passion for the sustainability of authentic Western heritage.
I think finding your true north is one thing. He really made it look easy, so it's not as easy sometimes for some people as he made it look. And I remember thinking when he decided to build the farm, like, you're crazy. I thought every reason not to do it. And in that moment, I really recognized, as he kind of had this dream and was able to articulate it and bring it to life, I just had a closer, more front row seat of how this fearlessness worked.
And the one thing that I learned from Bruce that may have probably changed me more than just a little hard. He's so damn positive. He's positive about everything. And that's what kept him in that track, kept him in his lane. He's just positive about it. It was going to be fine. It's going to work out.
I think, from my perspective, if you're not going to build something for a bit of a higher purpose, then why do it?
His legacy will really be the foundation that he laid for so many different people. I think it's been really powerful for me kind of over the past year to hear, I always think of my dad as dad. I think there's so many other people that viewed him in that same light.
The ripple effect that he has, it just can't be recreated.
And Bruce was regarded as a leader. All those early franchisees, they wanted to be like him. They admired him. He challenged them and he challenged us. He was never satisfied.
He just had the ability to connect with people. I think sometimes in the hospitality business, there's what I call plastic hospitality and there's genuine hospitality. And it was always genuine with him. And that left a mark on me.
I think now, more than ever, somehow Brush Creek, I'll start crying, but with the vast beauty and the endless landscape, that will be with us forever. And I just think back, and I know he didn't know it at the time, but somehow the ranch is just, his legacy, what he left for not just our family, but for everyone.
leader is also to be judged by how effective the organization is in his absence.